Good morning, fellow teachers. Kumusta po kayo? I am Mr. Noel Banawis. I am a teacher of values education and religious education. Before I continue my sharing, I would like to extend my gratitude to the people behind Kaagapay Teacher Support for inviting me to share my experiences in distance learning. Pagbabalik loob. Certainly, we are familiar with these words. We've heard it many times. They entail going back, and in a more profound meaning, reconciliation. In this sharing, it will be the basis through which my realizations were drawn. My first realization is that the contents should be appropriated to the needs and situations of our students, not the other way around. Before the school year started, all of us attended several webinars and trainings in order to prepare ourselves for this school year. People expect us to deliver effectively our lessons and make the teaching and learning process meaningful, even with many limitations. I realize that I can only do this if I focus more on what is happening in the loob of my students instead of forcing the contents to them. Another realization is that our subjects, religious education and values education, focus on the person. Yes, they are different. On one hand, religious education is based on doctrinal truths, moral principles, and values, and the liturgical life of the community as celebrated in the sacramental worship. And on one hand, we have the values education, which is based on the different education theories. For example, social learning, experiential learning, and constructivism, to name a few. However, these two, though different, have many similarities. And one of which is that both of them seek to form our students to live a meaningful life, develop their potentials, make guided decisions, do good and be good, and contribute to the society. In short, gusto natin sila maging mabubuting mga tao. It makes sense, therefore, that the Department of Education aptly named the subject as Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao. Because for us Filipinos, in our context, a person who is mabuti has mabuting loob. Thus, in my title, I have Pagbabalik Loob. My sharing for today will be divided into four parts. The first part, I will explain to you the meaning of loob and how it is translated in my teachings. Second, the tools that I use to make my teaching more effective and meaningful. Third and fourth will be the strategies that I adopted and gained along the way, which I consider effective as I teach in distance learning. I hope you would agree if I say that this pandemic gave us opportunities. I want to look at things that way on a more optimistic and positive perspective. I don't want to focus on the problems, challenges. But for me, this pandemic made everyone be still and reflect. On our context as teachers, It gives us the opportunity to build the characters of our students, challenge and clarify their values. And I think equally important is to look into what is in their loob. So what is really loob? So the concept of loob was developed by Father Dionisio Miranda, SVD. He is one of the pioneers and pillars of the elements of Filipino philosophy. His reflection on the loob is embodied in his book entitled Loob, the Filipino Within. For Father Johnny, loob can be understood by using the two concepts, the katauhan or the personality and the pagkatao or character. So let us first with katauhan. For Father Johnny, when we speak about katauhan, we are talking about the traits, attitudes, or habits that distinguish one individual from another. So it is a complex or one's behavioral and emotional tendencies. It makes everyone unique. For him, the katauhan has following distinctive constituents. First is what we call the malay, the awareness or consciousness. So we want that this pandemic would give us the opportunity to inculcate into our learners that malay, the awareness of what is happening in the society. And of course, what is also happening inside them. Next is what we call the dama, could be internal or external. Sensitivity, what are they feeling right now? Oftentimes, I would always encourage my students to be more aware, to get in touch with their emotions. What do they feel? How a particular experience makes them feel that way. And of course, lastly, is what we have, the ugali, the behavior, tendency, or habit. It helps us to make decision based on our behavior. So this is the first one, the katauhan. Another way of looking at the loob is through the pagkatao or the moral character of the persons. This includes the values and attitudes, principles and norms, ideals and projects that lend the person his moral form, the kaloobang makatao as he coined it. In the generic sense, it responds to perceptions of realities, whether good or evil, right and wrong, appropriate and not appropriate. He further divided this into three constituents. The first one is what we call the isip, the mind, the thinking sense, as thoughts, contents, and consciousness awareness. So the isip helps us to, to think, to reason out. It helps us affirm our paninindigan. Second is what we call is the bait, the goodness that is intrinsic in us. For us Filipinos, we always think of others as inherently mababait. For us, we are born as good. So the language consistently associates it with the more positive emotions and sentiments, knowing what is acceptable and what is not. And third, we call it kalooban, what is inside, our sense of what is right or wrong, our decision to choose the good over what is not good. All of these fellow teachers resonate with the goals of edukasyong pagpapakatao. So we say that the ESP is geared towards pagkakaunawa ng pagkakatao ng ating mga mag-aral. Sanayin upang maging mabubuting tao. Magkaroon ng kakayahan, na maging mabuti at pusbungin ang kanilang mga ugnayan sa kapwa, sa Diyos at kalikasan. In my class, I try to inculcate this to my students by having reflective learning. And in a more concrete manner, I utilize the what we call the See, Judge, Act methodology. Let me say it again. See, Judge, Act methodology. It is a way of reading the signs of the time. So for us, most especially for the young generations, we are called not just to react, but first, we need to think first. That's why it's very important and relevant these days, the See, Judge, Act methodology. So the first part is the See. In this part, students are called to become aware of their surroundings. What are the realities around them affecting the world, the society, the respective communities, the respective families, and them as people, as an individual person. So, for example, the pandemic, kasi I always wanted to be contextualized. Paano naapektuhan ng pandemic ang Pilipinas, ang kanilang mga komunidad, ang kanilang pamilya, ang kanilang sarili? What they felt about it? What were the changes that happened to them? And how it changed their perspective and outlook of life. So that was the first part, the C, getting in touch with the realities. The second part is what we call the judge. The judge enables them to gauge and have a deeper, a more profound understanding on these realities. But this time, they're going to see it from the perspective of their faith. Regardless of the religious education, in this part, they are called to probe deeper, look deeper. What is it for them as young Muslims, as young Christians, as young Buddhists? What does their faith tell them? What are the teachings of the respective faith? So that is the judge. And last is what we call the act. Based on these realities, how are they going to respond to this? Based on their see and judge, they are now going to come up with doable, practical actions that they can do to address these realities. Not necessarily grand, but practical, but formative, but doable. And in the process of making them do this, they would become more aware of what is happening inside them, of their loob. So even in my vlogs, whenever I ask them to do vlogs, it is always that way. Not more on the objective part of the contents, but more on the implications of the contents in their respective lives. Now, allow me to share to you the different tools that I am using in order to make my teaching more effective and interesting to my students. In my school, where I am teaching, we are already using our personal learning management system. But from time to time, I do use other applications. And I'm telling you, my students enjoy this. For them, it's good to experience something new, something that is interactive. The first one that I want to share with you is from Super Teacher Tools. I like it because it is, of course, free, teacher friendly, student friendly. It is easy for me to make games, interactive games, and also for students to access it. I just need the link and send it to them. They can already play, use the games on their own pace and in their convenient time. So an example of this activity, the activities that you can do in this website would be reviews and recitation. You can use the games, for example, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Jeopardy style review game, an online spinner. You can use them for reviews and recitation. My students enjoy the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I think the Gen Z is not so familiar with this, but they like the idea that they have lifelines, that they can call a friend, that ask the audience, and the 50-50 as they get the correct answer. And in every step, they would get also awards, points. And whenever they get a mistake, they go back to the first question. Hence, and in the process, while they're enjoying, they're also having mastery on the lesson. I think the only downside of this activity is that the data, their scores are not recorded. So there's no way for me on my part to get the results of their games, of their review games. That's why I only use this as formative assessment. Another tool that I want to share with you is something that you are already familiar with. It's SEESAW. I like it because, again, it's free. It's teacher friendly, student friendly, highly interactive, and of course, it saves data, contains library of activities. There are already multiple activities that you can actually use and just import them in your respective classes. Example of the learning activities that you can do here would be photo, drawing, video, files, and essays. So students can submit and you can also present the best outputs to them. You can also make discussions that they can respond. So basically this is interactive. The only thing that I think the limitation of this app is that since it is free, some activities are very much limited. Say for example, you're only given 8 classes for free. And beyond that, that will not be free anymore. So in that case, CISO can also be limited. But I'm telling you, this is very helpful, most especially for those teachers who may not have more than 8 classes that they are teaching for this year. The third and the last uh, tool that I would like to share, and I think this is very much applicable to those doing modular teaching, is Messenger. We are so familiar with this, but for most of us, Messenger is only used for social interaction. But for teachers that I know, those teaching in the public schools, they are utilizing well Messenger as a device, as a tool for them to reach out to their students. One of the good things about Messenger is that it takes lower bandwidth compared to other teleconferencing apps. It is widely available, easy to navigate, and of course, not only teacher and student friendly, but of course, parent friendly. Parents are more comfortable in using Messenger. So, what are the possible learning activities that you can do here? Say, for example, you can ask them to submit photos, drawing. You can also make videos and share it through Messenger. Teachers, on their part, can make audio clips, say, for example, instruction or about a pocket size of their lessons. or say, for example, if they want to elaborate a particular task. And of course, they can also submit files, reminders, just to name a few. However, Messenger can also be limited as it is difficult and challenging to organize, and of course, difficult to track. On my part, my take on these tools is that let's use it as long as it is effective and it's conducive on our situation and will be beneficial for our students, then why not? We make use of it as long as at the end of the day, it will help us and it will help our students. At this time, allow me to share some of the effective practices that I am doing in my classes. We do know that our students have different learning styles. Yes, they already have the modules, they already have the books, but for me, it's not enough. I need to offer them different ways to learn as much as possible. So, therefore, I still prepare handouts, videos, interactive videos to make their learning more effective and more meaningful and more interesting for the young people. It could be like tasking, could be daunting for others, but they are effective in a way. Another effective practice that I would like to share with you is the open forum. Believe me, students want to express themselves. Obviously, we do see them in the social media. They want to be heard. They want to be affirmed. Open forum helps us facilitate this. So open forum can be used also as icebreaker. It could also be a springboard or motivation. Say, for example, I do use hashtag as a springboard of my class. For example, hashtag what is a church? So students can already reply using pictures, using memes, using short sentences. They can also interact with one another. I also use open forum as an exit slip for my students. So, for example, after my lesson, I can just ask them, share your thoughts and questions through open forum. And believe me, it's very interactive. Their classmates can respond to their questions, they can discuss among themselves, hence helping them to express themselves more prudently, and in the process, helping their classmates. Third and the last thing that I want to share with you is the feedback. Of course, we do know that we need to give feedback to the outputs of the students. But I learned in this pandemic that feedback is really important and really helpful. Giving feedback on time, not a week after the submission, not a month after the submission, but impossible on the same day and after a day or after a few working days. Believe me, students would really appreciate that. Would really appreciate because for them it gives them the sense that they their works were validated, that they were affirmed. Usually I would start with compliments, the good things about their works. Then afterwards, the things that they can improve. And they appreciate this. Not only the students, but the parents who are also able to read the feedback that I send to all my students. And as much as possible, I always make it personal. One feedback is different to the feedback that I give to another student. And of course, feedback also to the parents. How are their kids, how are their children performing in my class? Parents do not know what is happening in the class. One parent even told me that she felt that she left her son in the jungle. So it really gave her an affirmation, a consolation when a teacher reached out to her. They want to know what is happening and how they can help in making their children's learning more meaningful. And of course, our colleagues. It's very important to give feedback to them. What is happening, sharing to them, or collaborating with them so that you can improve yourself. So, for example, if there are several teachers teaching the same subject, it's very important to give feedback to your materials, how you can improve it the next time, and how you can plan out to your future classes. So, giving feedback. And lastly, my fellow teachers, I want us to be reminded, not only you, but also myself, these takeaways. First, be kind. Be kind not only to others, to the parents, to the students, but also to yourself. Let us accept that there are things that are beyond our control, that we want to help everyone, but it is not possible to give, to receive the same level of performance from all our students. Let's also be kind to ourselves, knowing and accepting that we also have our limitations. Second, pay attention. In my experience, there would be times that it's important, more important to process with them a particular incident than pushing myself to finish a particular lesson. Pay attention to what the situation is telling you to do. Listen, listen to the feedback of your fellow teachers, coordinators, to the students and parents. For my part, I learned a lot from listening to them. I always tell them, you let me know how I can still improve myself. Third, be professional. And if we want to be effective as professionals, we need to rest. We are giving our best. Let us be satisfied with that, knowing that we are giving our best. We need to tap our shoulders for giving our best even in this difficult time. And thus, teachers, we deserve to have good rest. I know it's difficult, most especially in our setting, but I hope we can have more time to distinguish working from home and, of course, resting at home. It's also important. Rest to be more effective. Thank you so much for listening to my sharings. I would love to hear your questions if you have any. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paul, for listening, and I hope you got something from my sharing. Once again, I am Mr. Noel saying goodbye and thank you. Have a great day.